A very good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's uLaw webinar. And the webinar topic for today is about payment integration. And what we're going to be talking about today is how can you integrate ulawpractice with third-party payment gateways and truly integrate the process of accepting client payments, whether that's through for a retainer into trust or whether it's just a client payment into general. And we'll talk about the benefits, the pros, and how easy it is to integrate it with the uLaw system. And we'll talk about some examples of third-party gateways that we integrate with today. Just to be clear, today's webinar is not accredited for any CPD, but we do have CPD sessions the next 2 Fridays following today's session. So again, I know for sure next CPD is a CPD session for sure next Friday, but today's CPD on payment integration is not accredited for any CPD, but it's going to be a quick, fast and easy demonstration where we're going to look at a lot of the product demonstration of integrating uLaw with payment gateways, such as TD, Global Payments, Monaris, or Pivotal, or formerly known as Pivotal. Today it's known as the New Way Technologies. So today uLaw has been connected through a secure channel with these 4, I would say, compliant payment gateways. And we'll talk more about how we've integrated, how easy it is, and what benefits that it provides you in your legal business. Okay? Like every other uLaw webinar, today's webinar has a specific agenda. We're going to talk about, as I mentioned earlier, the value of the payment integration and what that brings to your business, highlighting again the ease of doing business with your legal firm, the convenience that you're providing your customer, as well as giving you the opportunity to make it easier for your clients to make payments for your service. Okay. How can it streamline one of the most important aspects of your business, which is you getting paid and getting paid on time? So of course, we're going to specifically talk about how best you streamline that process. And talking about the key integrations that we have today with uLaw, we have 4 different options that we have integrated with: New Way or Pivotal Payments, Monaris, TD, and Global Payments, one of the more recent merchants that we've integrated with. And this is through a secure channel, a 2-way connection between ulawpractice and these providers, working with their development team to ensure that the security as well as the data integrity is maintained and managed properly, so that we take all the heavy lifting of the integration between these systems and give it to you and your end customers that same convenience of using the system through simple clicks of buttons. Okay. We're going to briefly talk about the compliant aspect of collecting funds electronically and depositing it into your trust account. What can you do to ensure you stick to that compliance? You're not unnecessarily taking bank fees out of your trust account, how that can reflect in the time spent in your reconciliation, and how can you set up that payment collection into your trust account through the use of these channels. Of course, the last we'll talk about the efficiencies, the simplicity of even integrating payment methods into your digital invoice, keeping it simpler for you to not only make it easier on your customer, but also easier on your own business to be able to collect funds. Okay. So one of the core advantages that we believe when we first started to integrate uLaw with payment gateways is, of course, talking about the number one aspect was getting paid faster and accurately in a very convenient, cost-effective manner, right? This was one of the biggest pain points that our customers faced is they would, of course, do all the work, and many times, especially when retainers were not involved, this was an issue where a lot of effort, work was put in, invoices were generated, and the old school way of accepting payments, whether that's having to come to the office to actually swipe a card with a digital gateway or a device, or checks, and then having to deal with bounced checks if that check did not go through properly, the problems with that sometimes not meeting the right timeline, leading to reconciliation issues. So cost effective from the overall cost of ownership of payments, convenience both for yourself and your clients, because not all of them have checkbooks today. Everyone wants to do payments at the convenience of their home using electronic devices. You want to be able to pay through credit cards, right? And of course, to you as a business, what that means is that you get paid faster and accurately. And the convenience that you're able to provide your end client is the anytime access of these payments where there's internet, right? And gradually, when we evolved these integrations, we started to look at what type of gateways can we work with that also accept major credit cards, especially the likes of American Express. Very specific institutions integrate with the likes of American Express and other cards such as Discover. Visa, MasterCard, of course, is a very common, I would say, credit card company that most of these gateways integrate with, but we wanted to work with institutions that offer enough options for our legal clients to offer their end customers as well. And the last option was something that I highlighted briefly, is yet another issue in the legal industry, which has a cascading effect, if you will, is the bounced checks, or especially when the payments are not made in time, and then having to deal with reconciliation issues if those checks bounce and you recognize that at a much later time in a month, right? So having access to that invoice, having a process to get paid faster, especially if it's a credit card, you right away know if the credit card has funds in it, right? Because if someone's actually giving you a credit card, you can enter it right within the convenience of uLaw, where you can send it to your client as part of an invoice and they can pay for it at their own convenience. Use the same link if a credit card does not work. They can reapply another credit card. So you don't have to deal with bounce checks anymore. You don't have to deal with the integrity of that payment plan or process that your customers take. That way you can be assured of getting paid faster, accurately, in time, providing all the convenience and cost effectiveness to both your business and to your customers. How has this been accomplished? Okay, so assuming that you're a legal business that deals with both trust and general accounts. Now, what that does mean is, let's assume that you are a legal business that does accept money into your trust account, such as a retainer, as a form of payment in advance, as well as a legal firm that accepts payments directly into general. So in some matters, you may accept retainers. Some matters you may decide not to, again, based on the nature of the business, nature of the matter. Of course, the Law Society does talk about the benefits of utilizing the retainer as a means of accepting payment. That way, you as a legal professional can safeguard the sanity of your service providing, as well as the money of the effort that you've put in, ensuring you're getting paid. Now, it's important that when we integrate through credit card processing and doing all of these online payment gateway options, that we consider the right partners that can ensure compliance, can ensure that your trust account is untouched with bank fees and other credit card processing fees that may be associated, right? So when we work with these 4 partners over a period of time, all these partners provide that compliance by default in the way they've set up. And why have they done that? They've done that because they've recognized that this legal business is a business that they want to be in. They've recognized that if they have to be in this legal business and work with legal professionals where they transact using credit cards for payments, that they be very much aware of the compliance nature of both the trust and general accounts. And what they have done internally to ensure the success of those payments is they've created 2 separate accounts, even within the credit card processing, one for trust that connects with your trust account in your bank, and the other is for the general, which connects with your general account that you have. So if you're dealing with Moneris, when you sign up, will, of course, work with you to provide you a certain plan. Again, none of this is free, let's be honest, except the integration with uLaw, which is, of course, free of charge. There's no extra cost to do that. But when you actually do these transactions, because it's all for business, what these companies are hoping to get is the service fee or the transaction fee, if you will, of each service or transaction that occurs with that credit card. So, for example, if you've got a $1,000 retainer and you use the integration with uLaw with Moneris, for example, you would set up with Moneris, and Moneris would sign up based on the number of transactions that you have, the amount of these transactions, and say, all right, it's going to be a 2.5%, give or take, service fee every time you transact, or transaction fee, whatever the terminology may be. So for a $1,000 retainer, it's going to be a $25 fee, and that's the expense that your business will have to incur. And what you get in return is the compliance, but also the ability to ensure that the money is in the bank. It avoids any issues of bounce checks. It doesn't have to deal with overhead timelines, etc. So for all of that, what's the cost of that ownership? Is that 2.5%, for example. Now what happens is if you do not have the separation of the trust in general, traditionally what would happen is there would just be one account that's being associated with these credit card companies because they need a place to deposit the money and they need a place to take that service fee out of. And if the differentiation does not happen, then predominantly these credit card companies are depositing and withdrawing from the same account. And that would not be a compliant way to do things, especially if you're touching trust. Right? So you don't want to deposit the $1,000 into the trust account and then take that $25 out of that trust account. Because it's actually a service fee and it's not related to a client expense or it's not related to a client transaction. It's actually an office expense that your legal business has incurred in providing that facility, right? In a compliant world, working with these transaction companies, what they have done is when you set up with either of these 4 companies, if you like to be integrated with uLaw, when you do set them up, and we can introduce you to the right partners in these companies, there are certain discounts that you do get offered because if you're a customer of uLaw. And what they would do is that same example. Let's say you're banking with BMO and you're working with Moneris. Moneris will tie in their terminal, that they call it terminal ID for trust, and they will set that up so that it's connected with your BMO trust account. They would create another terminal for the general account, and that would be connected with your BMO general account. And what uLaw has done is it's taken these 2 terminals and it's digitized it within uLaw so that when you enter that information into uLaw settings, we connect with Moneris. So when you accept that retainer right within uLaw, the $1,000 gets transacted. You as the business owner know right away if there are funds in that credit card or not. So if your customer gives you a credit card number or if they walk into your office, whether they do it themselves, your business automatically recognizes if the money was in the bank, if there is $100,000, right? If there are insufficient funds in the credit card, you are notified right away, like instantaneously, so that you know to ask for a new credit card. If the money is there, the $1,000 gets transacted. That $1,000 gets directly deposited through Monaris into your BMO's trust account. So your trust account in BMO would show a ledger of a deposit of $1,000. What uLaw would do is go one step further and say that that is a trust ledger of a $1,000 deposit for this particular client, making that whole process simple. Now, the service fee of 2.5%, as an example that I'm taking here, is something that you have to deal with, that Monaris is, of course, looking to take from your account. Now, what they do is they know that they should not touch the trust account because it's not a compliant manner. They then take that $25 out of the general terminal ID that they've connected with your BMO's general account, and hence $25 would be withdrawn from your general account. And that is something that you would reflect within uLaw as a expense or an office expense that you have incurred in providing that facility. Okay? But the crux of this matter, of all this whole story, is that trust account is not having to deal with that $25 service fee. It's not taken out of the trust account. There's only deposit in. Okay? That is truly the workflow, and what that allows you to do through the integration with uLaw is ensure a streamlined process, ensure a compliant process, and at the end of the day gives you the documents such as ledgers and journals at a click of a button. And that's pretty much it. That's the value proposition of this payment integration. Okay? What is the convenience of this integration? In uLaw, the convenience, of course, is that it's a one-time setup. So once you set up with either Monaris or Global Payments, or TD, or Nuvei, all of these individual institutions operate almost in a similar manner. They either call it a terminal, or some of them call it a kiosk, or some of them may call it a merchant ID. But the bottom line is all these have their own individual transactions with your trust account and your general account. And you can bank with anybody. And these institutions would be able to connect into that bank that you're dealing with. Okay? Once you've established that relationship with one of these four vendors, and you've got that information about that kiosk, terminal, merchant ID, each account or ID comes with its own secret key or password. So you have an account number and a secret key for your trust, and this account or merchant ID, etc., with a secret key for your general. That information is then entered into uLaw through a secure settings, and once you save it, uLaw automatically recognizes that you have now integrated with one of these vendors. And any time that you transact, whether you're generating a retainer or accepting a retainer with a uLaw, whether you're sending an invoice via uLaw, or if someone's calling you and you're entering it into uLaw itself, we know and give you the option of accepting those monies through this credit card process. Okay. So let's, of course, seeing is believing, so I'm definitely going to walk you through this in a very simplistic manner, and we'll take more than one or two examples to show you how it works across all these different providers, of course, and look at some different fun options that we have of how you can accept that money. Okay. So bottom line, what is this going to do for your business? It's going to keep you efficient. because anytime you've collected that payment, whether it's through you, your staff, or even facilitating it through a digital invoice with the link for payment, you're collecting that payment and you're recording that the payment is done, and the accounting details are automatically ledgered, right? By separating the trust and general account, you're not only making it easier on your compliance, but the whole aspect of credit card integration makes it efficient so you can avoid any last-minute reconciliation headaches. It's, of course, secure. So the integration uLaw by itself is a 256-bit encrypted. These service providers are also bit encrypted, and the transaction that occurs between uLaw and this third party are also 256-bit encrypted, keeping that secure and the data and the integration secure. And last but not the least, of course, there's a service fee associated with it. But if you look at the total cost of ownership that you have to deal with as a business, for the facilities you're able to offer your clients, for the convenience that you as a business owner are able to appreciate, and the time and the money that it saves you when there are erroneous issues, of course, that's a risk-reward conversation that you need to have. Ensure that you're able to afford those fees, and ensure that if that makes sense to you, of course, there's a model through uLaw to make that happen. And of course, uLaw as a product does not charge anything for this integration. Okay. So we're just going to walk through a simplistic example. As I said, not only can you enter it into the uLaw system, you can also facilitate a simple link within an invoice and send it to a client, and she or he can actually click on it and pay for it at their own leisure. Okay, so that's what we're going to look at in the next 20 to 25 minutes as I walk you through a simple workflow, if you will, in the day-to-day life within uLaw, and how you can accept credit card payments as part of it. For those who join us today, again, I reiterate that today's session is, of course, not a CPD session, and if by any means we've informed you wrongly in our emails, we sincerely apologize. The CPD session is going to be for next week. Of course, we're going to do a CPD session for next week, and today's session is not a CPD, I confirm. But having said that, I'm going to spend the next 20-25 minutes. If you are a uLaw user, it's going to be beneficial if you do not have that integration, something to think about. If you're already using this, then this is another session to reiterate that you're on the right path. If you're someone that's new to uLaw, we're a Canadian legal accounting and practice management software company based out of Ottawa, and this is what we've been doing, helping legal professionals stay compliant and efficient in their legal business, and we've been doing that successfully for the last 9 years. So do check us out on our website. We offer a free 30-day trial sign-up, and we welcome you, and we'll do our best to earn your business. Now I'm going to quickly shift gears. As always in my demonstrations, I'm going to log into a fictitious legal professional, Roger Moore. Let me get my annotation real quick so that you know where I'm maneuvering within the system. The first things first, I'm going to talk about the settings, because that's really the first step in this whole equation. So if you go into our settings, of course, you're presented with multiple tabs. Each tab relates to a certain section or screen or functionality within the product. And the specific tab that we want to focus for the credit card integration with uLaw is the Accounts tab. And once you click on a tab, it gets highlighted in the color so that you know that's the particular screen that you're in. And by default, when you've just set up uLaw or you've not yet set up an integration with any systems, this is the setting that you're going to see. You're going to see that it, by default, set up to payment collection being set up to none. Now let's say we introduce you to all these 4 players. Of course, you would do the due diligence, call them up, speak to those individuals that we maybe refer you to. do your own little homework to negotiate the best rate from any of these four companies. Let's assume you agreed to work with Global Payments because let's say they do offer a great rate, something that's very competitive, and these are one of the newer partners that we work with, and they offer some wonderful programs for our clients as well. Of course, purposes of demonstration today, I'm using a test account that we've been provided as a vendor. Do not choose this account. In your real life example, you would use Global Payments as the option. Okay? So I'm going to start with taking that test account. And what Global Payments would give you is a trust terminal ID, a trust account secret key. Likewise, they would give you a general terminal ID with a general account secret key. The same thing applies to TD. They would give you a store ID with its secret key or HPP key. So it's one of those two words. It's either terminal or store ID. It's either secret or it's a HPP key. Likewise, you have Moneris. They have a store ID and its own secret key for both trust and general. And last but not the least, uLaw. It's not Pivotal anymore. We have to update our system. It's called uLaw. They would give you your own terminal ID with secret key for both trust and general. Okay? So this is a one-type setup where you enter that information, you put in the secret key, and you click Save. Okay? Now what happens behind the scene is now uLaw understands and recognizes that this is a new integration that you have introduced for uLaw to consider. And now it's going to build it right into the workflow of you using the uLaw system on a day-to-day basis. So let's consider a simple example. Let's do a client intake of a new client who has just entered your office or someone who's just given you a call, whatever may be the situation. And let's walk through that simple example or multiple examples. Like always, you would say add new contact and add that new client's information under your clients. I'm going to say it's Miss Kiara Knight, someone who's an employee referral, referred to one of the colleagues that we have, who lives on King Street, Toronto, in the province of Ontario. This is their home address. Okay. Of course, I can go ahead and enter Kiara's phone number or email. And if you use the uLaw app, of course, you can either docket emails that are being sent to Kiara or the phone conversations that you have with Kiara as docketable items within the matter. But if you don't have that information at that time, that's okay. You can still go ahead and enter whatever information you have about the client, and you're going to create that client record within uLaw. So uLaw, you'd see this refresh and bring about Kiara's information. And once you have the client information, the immediate next step you're going to do, of course, you're going to go through a conflict screening process. You're going to ensure that it's okay to work with this client, right? So you're going to do all the important compliant aspects. That's a click of a button as well within uLaw. But let's focus on getting into the matter and the credit card processing use case that I'd like to walk you through for the purpose of today's webinar. Okay, the question is, where is the compliance? That's right here. So in uLaw, almost every screen is a compliance panel. So if you needed to do your conflict screening, you can do it right away. Click of a button. Okay? So that's how you'd go about doing it. Let's assume you've done it. and you're comfortable representing this client, you want to go ahead and create a file or a matter, you would go ahead as always and click on the matter button, and this opens up a brand new matter page. And let's assume this could be any matter, criminal, family matter, it could be a small claims, it could be POA, landlord and tenant. Let's assume this is a landlord and tenant issue, and we could say eviction of tenant, 124 Queen Street. Okay. Maybe that's the name of the condo or the apartment or the house, and Kiara is the landlord, and they're looking to evict the tenant, or maybe lack of payment, whatever the reason may be. Okay. So you'd go ahead, create that matter, because you've just agreed to represent Kiara, and now uLaw creates a file number that's unique to Kiara, that's unique to this particular file, which was representing them for this landlord and tenant board matter. Now let's assume that your law firm or a legal firm accepts retainers, very smart thing to do, and you have your trust account and your general account. Of course, within uLaw, you would have entered that information as part of the settings or accounting settings. So you've created a pooled trust account, or rather we would have created it, and you've of course told us which particular bank that you deal with so that you know which account you're dealing with. So it's a Scotiabank trust account, and let's assume a general account is with TD. Okay. For those who are not able to hear my audio quality properly, if you're not on the phone, what I would kindly request is if you could dial in to the phone number provided. I will do my best to speak out loud. And if you're actually connected via computer, sometimes the audio quality may be compromised. So we'd sincerely appreciate if you could dial in to the number provided in the chat window. And I'm going to definitely do my best to speak out as loud as I can, and hope that helps. Okay. So of course, in the chart of accounts within uLaw, you're going to tell us which bank account you're dealing with. And when I go back into the Kiara landlord and tenant board matter, let's assume in the workflow, Kiara is in front of your office and you're like, okay, let's sign up a retainer letter. So maybe you just go ahead and you sign up a retainer letter. Okay, you generate that letter. There are many different samples that uLaw provides. I'm not going to get into it today. But of course, you do have samples that you can look at, or you may have your own samples of retainer letters that you can bring into uLaw, or you can just get this signed outside of uLaw as well, whatever is convenient. Let's assume you've signed up for a $1,000 retainer, okay? And Kiara gives her checkbook, and you're like, no, let's go. I've got this new cool integration with uLaw and the credit card company. Let's go about doing that, right? So you're going to just go through your regular process of how you would enter a retainer, even if she were to pay you a check. And this is the part where you're telling the software that a particular transaction or activity is actually going to happen or has happened with your business. And this particular transaction here is that you accepting that retainer through a mode of payment. So you could say new retainer, capture today's date, and once you enter the amount of $1,000, let's say that's what you've signed up for, you right away see this new particular button, if you will, get highlighted. If you did not have the integration with any payment gateway, you will not see this button being highlighted. This would be grayed out. But once uLaw recognizes that you have entered a valid information, Once you've had that valid information, you're pretty much going to accept that payment right from here. So you would click on Payment Collection. This is assuming that you're in the office and you're using uLaw, whether the client is in front of you or whether the client's just made a phone call and you're doing this with her on the phone, it's still the same. You're going to validate this and say, yeah, I'm ready to collect the payment now. Now this is a screen where we have integrated with global payments because that's the option I chose within our settings. And this is the screen where you can enter the name. I'm going to enter the card number, the expiry date, security code, and the name on the card. And you can actually click Pay Now. It's processing. I don't want to save it. And right away, behind the scene, uLaw has transferred that credit card information to Global Payments. Global Payments has ensured that the credit card has enough funds in it. It's taken that $1,000, and Global Payments would have deposited that into your Scotiabank Trust account. Okay? And what uLaw does, and it gives uLaw back a token or a message with a unique reference number, which is a reference of this transaction being successful. So you can see when the response says authorized, that means the credit card has gone through, it's been processed. You can either take this unique reference number, or you can just copy this entire string that we've provided you and enter that into the payment reference and provide Kiara with a retainer receipt right away. Okay? Is that easy? That's a simplistic workflow where someone just walked into your office or just made a phone call. You've entered that information once you've entered the settings and transacted that $1,000 retainer into uLaw. So two things have happened. One, within the context of uLaw, all the ledgers have been generated. So I'm going to show you that. But more importantly, on the other side, in a very more practical, pragmatic way, the Global Payments Credit Card Processing Gateway has now started. It's taken that $1,000 from your client's Visa or MasterCard and deposited that $1,000 into your Scotiabank in real life. Okay, and here is the retainer receipt that you can print, sign, email this to Kiara, or just send her a digital copy. Okay. Now, of course, that retainer receipt can be customized. You can have your own logo, banner, all of that. It's just based on the theme that you choose when you generate the retainer receipt. Just to show you what's happened behind the scene as well, if let's say I go ahead and I want to generate a document, let me go ahead and say I want to generate a ledger. It's a client's trust ledger. Of course, I can do it for the month. It's going to bring out all my customer transactions, right? So I can do this on a monthly basis. Just reiterating that today's webinar's topic is on payment integration. If you really look at our webinar, that's what was scheduled for today, integrated payment collection. And today's webinar is not accredited for any CPD. As you can see, it's not a CPD session. But if you're anyways misled to believe that it was a CPD, we apologize. Our webinar for next week, which is the 26th, is going to be a CPD session. Okay? So I'm going to download the monthly ledger, and this is very important. You just transacted $1,000 for retainer. For Kiara. And what uLaw has done behind the scene is now taken that, generated the ledger, and it says particulars retainer for Kiara, and here's the unique reference number that you added. It's got the $1,000 retainer with the balance in trust. Okay? So that one integration had two effects. One, in real life, the bank's being transacted, and on the other end, the ledger is being generated with those transactions in it. Okay. Now let's take another use case. Another use case is, let's say there is no retainer involved. Let's assume that you're just making a transaction through a general payment. Let's create another matter. You could even do it for the same client. Just say action. Now I do have to validate with my support staff, but I understand that maybe the email that was sent out has led to believe that today's would be a CPD. But again, I'd like to kindly reiterate that today's session is not accredited. It's the payment integration CPD, non-CPD version. We're actually going to have a CPD next week. If you're looking for a CPD session, you can also go to our YouTube channel. We do have specific webinar topics that are marked for CPD, and in fact, you can actually view them and clock them under the individual topics as CPD sessions as well. So sincerely apologize if this particular session that you joined were misled to believe that it was CPD, but it is not. And if there's any corrective measures we have to take, we will certainly do that on our end. So I'm going to continue going down this path of showcasing how the same payment collection or integration with these gateways can also be utilized when there is no trust. The important transaction also behind the scene is that service fee of $25. Now, Global Payments would have taken that amount out of your general account. So when you import that general account bank statement into uLaw, you can automatically then classify that $25 as an office expense. Okay. Now let's take the example where there is no retainer involved. I'm going to start a simple small claims matter. For the same client, Kiara, just for the purposes of today's demo. So this is another matter. And let's assume for the purposes of demo again that there is no retainer involved, because some legal firms, for all the right reasons, don't necessarily have a trust account, or for this particular matter, maybe they don't want to take that retainer out. And let's assume you're just going to start docketing, put in the effort, generate the invoice, and then collect the payment. So let us say you did an initial meeting, add another docket. Maybe this was done yesterday. You can go back in time, and then today, let's actually do it the other way around. So let's say the 17th you had a meeting, you had a court visit on the 18th, and let's say this was a flat rate time of $200. The court visit was a billable time of 1 hour at your $400 per hour rate. And let's add another event or docket and call this as the final closure. And we'll also change this into a flat rate. So you can see we can accommodate multiple different formats. We can do contingency, etc. I'm just going to dock it away. I'm going to hit save. I can also be dispersing at this point in time. Okay. And when I'm ready, there is no retainer, of course, to be dealt with. There's just a flat work done. There's $1,000 the client owes. Let's go ahead and generate that invoice. So, of course, you can generate a pre-bill if you like. A pre-bill is just a fast and easy way for you to look at how this invoice would typically look like before you send it to your client. Or if this happens to be within a firm, you could have your assistant generate this and send it to you as the owner. You review it, ensure that it's right before it's sent out. But let's just go ahead and generate this invoice. And for that, you'd hit complete. Skip the preview. And of course, you can choose any of these different templates that we have for our invoices. So let me go ahead with the uLaw theme. I'm going to click on the invoice button. You can change the date. So you can actually change the terms, any penalties that you may have, or you can change this right on our settings as well. Date of this invoice. Now every invoice summary gets sent out to a particular email. You can change that. You can say who within the firm generated this invoice. Once it's ready, hit the download button. And now uLaw provides you with a digital version of a PDF of this invoice outlining all the work that's been done. So it talks about the Roger Moore Law Firm, has all the information. So this is one style. Of course, we do have styles where you can incorporate your own logo and banner. It tells you that it's being invoiced to Ms. Kiara for amount of $1,000, today's date, with an invoice number being generated. It tells them here's the client meeting on the 17th, court visit on the 18th, and then there's the final closure for $300. So that's $900 plus taxes of 13%, leading to the total taxes. Okay, so it summarizes it. Now, if you have integrated uLaw with a third-party processing gateway that we looked at, another place where we recognize and bring a workflow in is we introduce this link. Anytime the client owes you money, we introduce this link in the next email communication that you have, indicating that please click here to pay the balance using your credit card. Imagine this being sent via email to your client, Kiara, and Kiara opens this PDF and then views this link, clicks on it. Kiara is then reflected to a Global Payments secure sandbox, or of course this is sandbox because this is a test account, but in real life this would be a very similar link, but that's 256-bit encrypted. And now Kiara has the opportunity to pay you by entering these details. She doesn't have to call you. She does have to come in person. She can do this at her own leisure, put in her information, and pay. Now, as soon as your client has made a payment, of course, they get notified. But in addition, you as the business owner connected with the system also get notified exactly at the same time. So here's the payment processing. It tells you the terminal ID and the unique reference number, and tells you what was it for. Was it for the matter, this particular matter? Kiara Steffi, so it's a small claim matter. It has the file number in it as well. Once again, all you have to do is take that unique reference number, accept that client payment. You can hit the question mark, or you can actually just say general deposit and say accept client payment. Put in the exact amount that they paid you for. They paid you in full. You can put that in. The unique reference number, and tell us, of course, the account that this was connected with. So let's assume this is the TD general account. Provide Kiara a payment receipt as well. And you're done. So likewise, so just like how we did it for the retainer, by using uLaw as the payment gateway, having set the settings right up front, you could just got the credit card information, enter that. That was one style. That could be done for trust, for general. The other important use case also is if there's any outstanding payment owing from the client. When you do generate that invoice, you can make that as part of that link. Automatically get notified when they do make that payment, so that you can now then enter that unique reference number, generate the receipt, and now email this back to Kiara. So let's generate another receipt just to show you what the payment receipt options you have. So you could choose, let's say, a default theme. And this, of course, incorporates your logo and banner. So just gone ahead and clicked on the payment receipt for this particular payment that the client made online, because they would certainly expect that as a formal payment receipt document from your legal office. Okay? So 3 important takeaways from today's presentation, of course. Number 1 is connecting with this third-party gateway through the settings. So first getting all the information from the gateway, entering it into uLaw settings. The second item is that even if you're dealing with trust account, you can now accept credit card payments for retainers, which is an important key, because through the integration with uLaw and these compliant gateways, your trust account is untouched, and any service fee is transacted directly out of your general account, and that is accomplished because of the segregation of the 2 accounts with its own secret key connecting with your trust and general account individually, or independently rather. And the third use case is a classic use case of just accepting payments without any trust being involved, where there's effort put in, invoice being generated and you're just waiting for a payment. Now, instead of waiting for the payment, sending them the invoice and not knowing what's happened with that document, now you can send them a digital version of that same invoice with a link that the client can use. So even if you have to follow up, you can basically say, "Hi Kiara, based on the email that I sent to you on the 19th, or here's a copy of that same email. There is a link right at the bottom for you and your convenience to click on it. That way you don't have to come into my office to give me a check. You don't have to call me. You don't have to do any of that. You can just do it at your own leisure if you like, using a credit card." And as soon as they pay you, you get notified. You enter that payment receipt into uLaw, generate the receipt out of uLaw, and send it to them. And when Kiara did make that $1,000 payment, what Global Payments did was directly deposit, or technically what happened is that they would deposit $1,017 into your TD general account. And they would withdraw that 2.5% on that amount, equaling to about $28, also out of the general account. Okay. So in this case, if I were to generate, let's say, a ledger, I would generate a client's general ledger. Okay, because in this particular matter for Kiara, there was no trust. Similar to the trust ledger that uLaw had generated, if I were to generate a monthly general ledger for my business, you're going to see how this has happened automatically behind the scene. So of course, you generate it for all clients. And here it is. This is a exact template of a general ledger expected by the Law Society. So you have it for the client with a specific file number. A legal fee of an invoice 3111 was generated for Kiara with this particular file number of 858110, and it was for 2017. Okay, so 117 of taxes and 900 of the overall fees. That's your actual revenue for your firm. And then you generated that invoice for that 2017, and then you got a client payment to that unique reference order, and the trust balance, the general balance is now 0. Okay? And that was truly the crux of today's webinar, is to help you understand the power of this integration between uLaw and the payment gateways. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we do have 4 different options that you can choose from. So we're not specifically connected just with one specific vendor. We're connected with 4 vendors, right from NewWay, Moneris, TD, and Global Payments. If there's anyone who has more interest in this particular integration, you can email us at support@ulawpractice.com, and we'll be happy to introduce you to all these vendors. And if you like any of these vendors and you'd like to work with them, integrate with them for the convenience that you just witnessed, then you will sign up with them and then come back to uLaw. Or you can actually do this yourself. You can actually take the settings, ask them for the terminal ID secret key, enter it into your settings, save it, and continue your workflow and start accepting credit card processing. Okay? So with that, I'll end today's webinar and pause for any questions that you may have. One last time, I do apologize for any miscommunication with regards to the nature of today's webinar. It was certainly not a CPD session, and we'll make sure we have our communications dealt with better going forward. But of course, we do have our YouTube channel that you can check out, and we do offer and actually have recorded CPD sessions if you have to catch up for CPDs. Okay? So kindly request you to chat or send us your questions via chat, or you can email us your questions to support@ulawpractice.com. Today's session is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel as early as Monday, Tuesday next week as well. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me today, and I'll take a pause, wait a few minutes for any questions that you may have. Kindly use the chat window to ask any questions that you may have. Thank you. Some good questions. The particular fee is something that you would negotiate with the individual vendors. It's not shown within uLaw. So this would be an outside of the uLaw conversation that you have with any of these vendors. And typically they have these conversations with you to know your situation, like how many transactions. So it's not a very, I would not say it's like a black and white. It's not like, oh, you are so-and-so, here's 3%, or you're so-and-so, it's 2%. It's not as simple as that. It does come with certain questions that they would have to ask you, determine your situation, and then provide you with their best rate, right? So the rates are not something that we determine because we're not the ones charging you for it. And yes, if you do not typically require a terminal machine, uLaw technically becomes that terminal machine for you. And how do I report this as an expense? Like how you would report this as an office expense in uLaw, you can either import that as a bank statement. So as and when these credit card companies process, they would leave, of course, $25 would be withdrawn or $26. You can either import those statements right from your bank account into uLaw, or if you can individually enter them as an expense. Say office expenses, global payments, service fee, charge. You can say interest and bank charges. You can just say bank charges. Or you can create a category called service fees or credit card fees. Like you have one of our customers created a category called Square charges. You can just quickly add a new account. Yes, it's not an automated entry yet. It's semi-automated to the point where if you do import the bank statement from your TD or Scotiabank and import it into uLaw, you don't have to enter this yourself. You're just basically pulling that information and just associating those transactions to a particular account. But if you want to add them manually, then yes, this is how you would do it. You can change the category into the global payment charges. Definitely it's not a client expense. This is an expense that your office has incurred, unless you have that in your retainer agreement and you've agreed and your client is willing to pay for that. Typically this would be an office expense. Right, so this would be the total. Taxes included, right? Paid to global payments. And of course, it would have transacted your TD account. Direct withdrawal. Now this is a manual entry, and this is where we semi-automated, where anytime you import your bank statement, you can do it on a daily, weekly basis. All this information would have been pre-populated for you when you bring that in from the import. Okay? Okay. If there aren't any more questions, once again, thank you everyone for joining me today. Have a fantastic weekend ahead, and look forward to seeing you in our next webinar next week, which is most definitely a CPE session. Thank you.